Hello and welcome to the UKPA Umpiring number 4.
Video number 4.
What we're going to do today,
We're going to look at crossing and line of the ball, which is a big topic in polo cross. So we've dedicated a whole video to it.
we have. So we'll get right into it because it's such a big topic. So we've got line of the ball. What would you define line of the ball as, Ian?
So line of the ball, it is defined in the rule book, what we see here, and it is an imaginary line, and it is basically the line that the ball is travelling in or has travelled in and would continue to travel in. And it's important to note here that actually the line of the ball exists when the ball is in a player's racket or when the ball has been thrown out of a racket and is just rolling on the ground. You know, it's in both those scenarios there is a line of the ball.
Absolutely, and we'll get into whether it's in a racket a little bit more when it comes into crossing, but if we expand that rule out here, we sort of talk about who possesses the line of the ball. So what's that talking about? How do you possess the line of the ball?
So if you are the player who is riding closest to the direction to which the ball is travelling in, you are in possession of the line of the ball.
Yeah, so often that can be, in this case here, that's actually the thrower of the ball. So we've got our Kellen number 1 there. Throws the ball on 10 metre throw. Actually, it gets a bit of a bad bounce and ends up travelling in a slightly different direction. But because Katie has followed that line of the ball, followed where it's travelled closest, and actually the Warwick number 3 there ends up cutting in front. And I think in this case, we say that's actually led to a dangerous ride off there, caused by the Warwick number 3 there. I think they do a straight goal on the board. So that's looking at that line, that's looking at part A. What's part B talking about, Ian?
So part B is saying that if you've got two players who are following the line of the ball together, so they might be attempting to ride each other off, they have right of way of a single player coming from any direction. So it's not that dissimilar to a single player following the line of the ball, but it just makes the point that actually you could have two players heading down the line, and if they are closer to that line than a single player, they've got right of way.
Yeah, so some commonplace you might see this, and we see it in this World Cup game, is actually a 3 waiting downfield, and we see the Irish number 3 there just scooting out of the way, because if he stops on that line in front of them to try and mark up the UK number 1, he is going to be stopping on the line of play, or line of the ball, sorry, and cause a foul. So rightly so, moves out of the way, and there's no issue. Playing number C, so player that is carrying the ball. What can you tell us about that?
So player carrying the ball carrier is generally considered to have the line of the ball. You know, they've got the ball in their racket, they are going to be creating the line of the ball. What you can't do as a ball carrier though is sort of suddenly change the line of the ball. You know, if you're heading one way and all the other players have a reasonable expectation, you know, particularly when you're going quite fast, if you suddenly change the direction, that's not very safe. And I think you've actually got a video for us here, haven't you, Chris?
Yeah, so this is a World Cup game. This one's not uncommon to see, and it's also quite difficult to determine who's at wrong. So at full speed, they also agree that there's a bit of an issue here, and the whistle does go, but we slow it right down, and we think the line of the ball, it's travelled from the umpire's hand almost straight out the back of the line out, and we've got sort of a bit of the T's as a guideline. And we see the UK in the white shirt there travelling fairly straight. I think that's Rachel Dewig there, travelling fairly straight on the line of the ball. Yeah. And we see the Zambia number 3 has already started turning, and we've just gained possession as we pause that photo. So we gained that possession, started turning downfield, and actually forces almost a dangerous cross. So we almost forced the UK number 3 there to have a dangerous cross behind. And I think, I'm not quite sure whether they just move it up the field for the UK there, but almost forcing that player in a dangerous position. Just because you've gained possession doesn't mean you can just change that line of the ball. Could you tell us anything about E, please, Ian?
Just because you throw the ball doesn't mean you've got possession of the line of it. So you could throw a ball away to your left-hand side, and that could be far closer to some other player's direction of travel than what you then do. You could throw it and then do a big loop around. Yeah. Just because you threw it doesn't mean you get right of way.
Yeah, so that ball being thrown creates a straight line. You've got to follow that straight line. It's not just the curve you were riding on. hopefully fairly self-explanatory, just something to bear in mind. We've got a few videos on F, so stopping on the ball. What could this look like, Ian?
Stopping on the ball, so I mean pretty much what it says in truth. You cannot just stop on the line of a ball. I think you've got us a few videos here, haven't you, Chris?
Yeah, so on this one, I want you to keep your eye on the ball carrier here. As they get tackled, the Cotswold number 3. And what they're doing, they're both slowing down. Actually, we see a dangerous ride off behind the saddle from the number 2, but it was actually caused by the Cotswold number 3 there, stopping on that line of the ball. The whole play was moving downfield, and we didn't just quite get out of the way. Moving on to a World Cup game, Ian, what can you see here?
Yeah, so you've got the USA versus the UK here, and the USA player, I think here, I think that's Rahul Desai, throws a big long ball up to his number 1, but it doesn't quite have the legs, and the number 1 is just checking up there in front of Jason Webb, just trying to get the ball, and you know, I mean, I don't think they actually blew that, but
I think we would. Ideally.
I think we would have done, and you know, I think Jason should have just shouted my line.
That's what you would have done, Ian. Not like we'll ever get in a World Cup.
No.
And going on to this last one, it's not necessarily just one person that can stop on the line of the ball. Here, we've got a whole pack of 5 people, all turning. And if we have a look at that last Cotswold player coming in, Ian, we would say it's their line of the ball. They're still travelling on that line. And actually, they've all end up fouling that one Cotswold player. And what would you end up doing there?
You're going to have a neutral lineup if players at both teams are on fault.
Excellent, and that is exactly what they do in the end. So that's stopping on the ball. So we'll just quickly go through these last 3. I don't think we've got any more videos on this part. But G, no line of travel. What's that talking about here?
So this is a scenario where the ball has sort of probably stopped travelling and has stopped travelling a little while, and everyone's sort of gone past it or missed it. And then it's just the player closest to the ball has possession. So the idea is that they get first dibs at it.
Yeah, so it, as Ian pointed out to me off this video, it does slightly contradict the top definition about even if it has stopped. But this is really in that scenario when every player has gone past the ball and it's almost closest to turn back for that. You would say that they have that right of way. So sometimes we see this in the area if the number 1 misses a bounce and both the 3 and run past it. It's that whoever gets that closest turn, they've got that line of the ball. The other player, if they're behind that, must change their line to meet that player safely. Standing stationary on the line. So what's that talking about?
Well, in truth, I mean, I view this very much the same as F in a way, but stopping on the ball. That, you know, you can't just sit there on the line of the ball and wait for it to come to you. You've got, you know, it's a little bit like we saw in that video with the USA number 1.
Yeah, so if the play's coming that way, you've got to move out of the way. You can't just stop and you say, oh, well, they ran into me. It tends to be the defending team have an issue with that. Line of the ball on a penalty line. So this tends to happen when there's a turnover as a number 3 and they've got it coming back out. We sometimes see quite a lot of players stood on that 30-yard line trying to take a pass.
Yeah.
And it's making sure that actually if that number 3 is coming towards you, they create a line of the ball and you've got to get out of the way. Okay, if you are going to take that pass, really it needs to be on the move. You need to be taking it going upfield, or it needs to be at a safe distance that we're not going to have any issues with crossing, which leads us neatly on to our next rule here. Rule 41 then, crossing. And it looks like we've had some amendments here, Ian, and the red pen. So this is going to be new for this year's rule book.
Yeah, so this again is just tidying up the rule book and making it clear where there's dangerous play, it should be a penalty 4 or above. The rule is as it was, that if you are crossing across another player's line, and that doesn't necessarily mean the line of the ball, it means cutting across or in front or behind another player, then you must do it at a safe distance. So there's no possibility of collision or danger.
Yeah, so we've got a couple of diagrams coming up, and we've got 2 scenarios here. So the top scenario talks about player A having that dotted line of the ball and player B shooting across in front. So sometimes we see this when we're going to mark up a player and maybe the player A just slightly changes their speed and we end up shooting past. We should still be blowing those. The fact that A has managed to avoid that collision by stopping doesn't mean that B's not in fault. And I think we've got a video from the World Cup to take us on to. And what can you tell us about this video, Iain, please?
So we've got a situation here where UK have taken the ball out of the line out, but then to stop the Zambian number 1 get into our number 1, I think our number 2 has just cut across in front of her.
Yeah, so we've paused it up and we have a look here. The ball is in the UK number 1 in Charlotte's racket, I believe it is. And that line of the ball is almost heading from the umpire directly into the corner of the screen as we see it. And the other Zambian number 1 is following that line because we're chasing the ball. We're following that line of the ball and we're coming in a bit of a bad angle and just cutting in front and forces a dangerous cross there. So I don't think they get it because it's in back play, but it is one to bear in mind.
So that's the one in front that we've just seen there, where we see the player cutting in front of another player. What we're going to see now, I think, is the player cutting behind, and in this case actually it's the ball carrier. So just because you've got the ball, again we'll come back to the idea, you can't just suddenly change direction, and you see there they've just changed to their right and just cut behind. I think we're going to see the same again here.
Yeah, so it's just cutting behind. But what would you say is a safe distance here?
So yeah, the rulebook just says a safe distance, which gives umpires a bit of discretion and leeway in this, but obviously can lead to a lack of clarity on this issue as well. And you've got to bear in mind how fast the horses are going, and sort of, you know, the faster they're going, the more room they need to leave.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's got to be taken on a bit of a case by case. Although I will throw this caveat in that if we feel that we want to eradicate crossing, which I hope we all do, what is the worst case scenario in blowing something that is considered maybe just about safe enough? Because as those players progress and get better and better, as I'm sure most of us hopefully are, they potentially
not anymore.
not in my Nia's cases, but hopefully they're going to end up playing faster and faster. So this can be quite a serious and dangerous thing to get wrong at a fast speed. So actually, if you think that that is considered too close, blow it. Have the confidence to blow it. Say it was dangerous. You are always right as an umpire.
Yeah. And I think, you know, certainly where we see horses' heads having to lift up to clear other horses' quarters and situations like that, it is clearly too close. I mean, do not wait until two players collide to go, oh, you're too close. Let's stop that happening by clamping down on this beforehand.
Excellent. So that concludes the end of our video 4. Thank you very much for watching and listening again. We'll see you all again. Bye.
Bye.